The military forces of the State of Kuwait consists of several joint-forming defense forces. The governing bodies of the Kuwait Ministry of Defense, the Kuwait Ministry of Interior, the Kuwait National Guard and the Kuwait Fire Service Directorate. The Emir of Kuwait is the commander-in-chief of all defense forces and the Crown Prince is the deputy commander. The early military-structured organization which first dealt with security and the military following the engagements of Kuwait Army's infantry and cavalry protecting the three mounted defensive walls of Kuwait prior and following to World War I, was the Directorate of Public Security Force, formed during the interwar period and mainly after World War II. The Directorate of Public Security Force already included the partnership integration of the Kuwait Army and Directorate of Police as independent forces following the formation of the first cabinet on June 17, 1962 after the independence. In 1953, the Kuwait Army split from the Directorate of Public Security Force, the latter merged with the Directorate of Police in 1959, giving formation to the newly established Kuwait Ministry of Interior. The Ministry of Interior includes the Kuwait Coast Guard and has several military commanders, designated by government protocol as assistant ministers under secretaries, each reporting to the Minister of Interior who is designated by protocol as Deputy Prime Minister of the State of Kuwait. Upon splitting from the Directorate of Public Security Force in 1953, the Kuwait Army acted as the de facto command leadership of the available armed forces since establishment. The Kuwait Army was founded in 1949, 13 years prior to the enacting of the ministry and partly mainly at the time composed almost entirely of land force components, with the Kuwait Air Force being founded 4 years later in 1953. With the establishment of the Kuwait Armed Forces in 1963, the Kuwait Ministry of Defense eventually became and is the governing body of the Kuwait Armed Forces, which includes and is not limited to the Kuwait Land Force, the Kuwait 25th Commando Brigade, the Kuwait Military Police Brigade, the Kuwait Emir Guard Brigade, the Kuwait Air Force, the Kuwait Naval Force and the Kuwait Military Fire Service Directorate. Each armed force at disposition of the respective combat commander reports to the Chief of General Staff of the Kuwait Armed Forces, who later reports to the Minister of Defense, designated also by protocol as Deputy Prime Minister of the State of Kuwait. The Kuwait National Guard, however, is an independent combat institution from the Ministry of Defense and Interior and acts independently under the guidance, discretion and disposition of the respective leadership, supporting the military of the State of Kuwait as needed and required. The Kuwait Fire Service Directorate is also an independent public fire-fighting body with military ranks and ribbons identifications. Organization. The Kuwait Land Force is the primary land force component of the Kuwait Armed Forces, predecessor of the cavalry and infantry. The Kuwait Army was established in 1949. The Kuwait Air Force is the principal air component of the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait Naval Force is the principal sea-based component of the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait Emir Guard Brigade is an independent combat brigade in the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait 25th Commando Brigade is an independent commando combat brigade in the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait Commandos Marine units are independent commando combat units, part of the Kuwait Navy in the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait Military Police is an independent combat brigade in the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait National Guard, considered a combat institution, is is an independent body from the Kuwait Armed Forces and Kuwait Ministry of Interior and is a main internal and border protection security force. The Kuwaiti Ministry of Interior is an independent corps from the Kuwait Armed Forces and Kuwait National Guard with internal, coastal and border security force consisting of combating and non-combatant elements. The Kuwait Land Border Force of the Interior is a land border component of the Ministry of Interior. The Kuwait Coast Guard is a sea-based component of the Ministry of Interior. The Kuwait Fire Service Directorate of the Public Firefighters. The Kuwait Military Fire Service Directorate of the Military Firefighters of the Kuwait Armed Forces. The Kuwait Armed Forces maintains a military base on Bubiyan Island, which was established in 1991. According to the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies, in 2007, the Kuwait Land Force had around 11,000 personnel, the Kuwait Air Force 2,500, and the Kuwait Navy 10 patrol and coastal craft, and there were 23,000 reservists for all services not including uniformed men and women of the Ministry of Interior and Military of the Fire Service Directorate. There were 6,600 paramilitary Kuwait National Guard forces. It was considered that, although the military of the state of Kuwait remained small per speculated policies and analysis, training and military readiness were taken seriously, and were effective at the brigade and squadron level. The combat operational doctrine is different amongst the various combat forces forming and is highly dependent of operational capabilities and general manning formations within sizes and equipments packing. Protocol designations of Defense and Interior Ministers. Both the Kuwait Minister of Defense and the Kuwait Minister of Interior are officially designated by protocol as Kuwait Deputy Prime Ministers, excluding the leadership and Minister of the Kuwait National Guard, and report to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister then reports to the Deputy Supreme Commander of the military, who finally reports to the Supreme Commander of the Military of Kuwait, His Highness the Emir of Kuwait. List of commanding generals prior to independence. Cavalry commanders of Kuwait prior to the discovery of oil. Battle general commanders of defense and security forces. Directors of the Directorate of Public Security Force. Directorate of Police. Kuwait Army. The Kuwait Army split from the Directorate of Public Security Force in 1953. Subsequently, the latter merged with Directorate of Police to form Directorate of Public Security and Police in 1959, following the demolition of the Third Defensive Wall of Kuwait in 1957 through a ministerial decree, which later formed the Kuwait Ministry of Interior including the Kuwait Police. Directors of the Directorate of Public Security Force, Directorate of Police and Kuwait Army. Directors of the Directorate of Public Security Force and Directorate of Police. Deputy Directors of the Directorate of Public Security Force, Directorate of Police and Kuwait Army. In 1953, and aside of the Police Directorate, the Kuwait Army split from the Kuwait Public Security Force, which gave rise to the Kuwait Ministry of Interior and Kuwait Ministry of Defense following the country's independence. Deputy Directors of Directorate of Public Security Force, Directorate of Police and Kuwait Army. Deputy Commander of the Kuwait Army. List of generals and commanders post-independence. Chiefs of General Staff of Kuwait Armed Forces. Commander of Kuwait National Guard Salim Al-Ali Al-Sabah. List of Ministers of Interior and Deputy Prime Ministers. List of Ministers of Defense and Deputy Prime Ministers.